I'm Erin Subito. I am a fourth year sociology major, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and my title of my research is Community Resilience During COVID-19. My key question for my research was asking, how have ethnic organizations, specifically ethnic college campus organizations, began to foster a sense of community, belonging, and purpose through remote programming during this pandemic? Now, understanding why I wanted to study this. So, UCSC has had the privilege to be integrated with an abundance of resources that cater to students of color. And one of the biggest forms of support that is given to these students are the various ethnic organizations that exist on this campus that have ample programming quarterly just to provide for their students of color. They provide events, workshops, and just spaces where there are other students of color to ensure that there's a sense of belonging, especially in a predominantly white institution. However, these spaces would not have been possible if it weren't for the initiative of student leaders who continue to offer these spaces, their own time and their own dedication. And for me personally, as the current chair of Bayanihan, I have done this all year, prior to COVID-19 and even past COVID-19. We had to deal with the hardships of just moving online and at firsthand. And I wanted to be able to explore this and how other ethnic organizations, especially those that exist on this campus, continue to foster this sense of belonging. However, despite all these circumstances that we have been facing this entire time during this pandemic, I wanted to understand and just seek the empowering strategies that our communities have taken to just stay resilient during this entire time. So within my first key finding, I found the understanding and the grounding of understanding that the notion for the strive of productivity is non-existent during a pandemic. What I mean by this is that it should not be our main priority during this difficult time to continue to stay productive and continue to put work out there. However, it is very, very important that we ground ourselves in the communities that we belong in and continue to strive on that. The second portion of my key findings is that communities and ethnic organizations have expanded their understanding of how to cater to their communities through exploring different alternatives and new platforms. Examples of this include having alternative podcasts over online mediums instead of having their in-person events, workshops that cater to the needs and the wants of communities over Zoom, and lastly, just offering a space where people can just come together and really encourage them to just find community despite things being online, whether it be through game nights, movie nights, even offering virtual study jams. My last key finding. Within these organizations, we have increased our accessibility to our communities so that they can still believe that there is a space for them despite being online. Having to not see our communities in person, feel these relationships in person is very difficult. However, we still want to be able to increase our accessibility through community office hours, through just having a space for folks to vent, and just making sure that their voices are still being heard, their thoughts, their experiences are being heard in this difficult time. So my takeaways from what I did within these 10 weeks is that while there were limitations, I was only able to do this in a 10-week period when this pandemic is still currently going on. And I only did this with a limited audience, so I was only limited to the UCSC campus organizations and specifically Bayanihan, an organization that I work closely with. However, my research and my findings have just provided guidelines and paths for how communities can continue to still foster a space during a pandemic and encourage folks to reflect on how to do it. Lastly, another takeaway is that my research provides an understanding that this is an ongoing process for many organizations, communities, and spaces to just grow. This pandemic has really allowed us to be just unique with our ideas and come up with something new each and every day and not be scared to just take those approaches each and every day to foster a sense of community. And lastly, there will never be a correct way on how we approach remote programming, especially when things are continuously up in the air every day. But it's very important for us to recognize the first step, breaking down the barriers that stand between us and the ability to extend our arms to our community members. This pandemic will not break our community, but it will continue to challenge us to grow as leaders, organizers, and community members. Lastly, before I go, I just want to say a big thank you to Rebecca London for offering this class. This class has allowed me to grow in many very different ways and in comfortable ways that I have not dealt with, and has allowed me to be personal with my own research. Thank you for offering this opportunity for students like me. Thank you, Rebecca.